Good day, Brittle Planet listeners. This is Eric Peterson, and today I am on the road in San Antonio, and I'm joined by the one and only Joey Vera of Arbor Saint. How are you doing today, Joey?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah. What do you think of San Antonio?
I love San Antonio.
Been
Played
here
here
many times. Yeah.
Played here many times. I have friends here. It's a cool city, a lot of history, good food, good people.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So you guys are here tonight playing with Wasp and Michael Schenker.
Mm-hmm.
And have you toured with either of those guys before?
We have.
Have you?
Yep. Us and Wasp go back to the infancy of our careers, both of us. We did many shows with them in the club scene when we were both coming up before any of us made records, 1982, 83. So we've played with Wasp quite a bit back in the club days. And then once we both made records, we also toured with them in 85. Kind of the infamous tour back then was Wasp, Metallica, and Armored Saint.
Oh,
and it went
okay.
it went all over the U.S. It was basically our second tour ever. The year prior, we had been out with Quiet Riot and Whitesnake.
Oh, okay.
That was our very first tour on the March of the Saint record. So so that was a really legendary tour. A lot of great memories and stuff. So
A lot of crazy stuff.
We were pretty young then, so a lot of crazy stuff was going down there. And then Michael Schenker Group, we've also played with several times. We've toured with them on the Macaulay Schenker version in the U.S. And then we've played with Michael on festivals a few times too.
Yeah.
So we're no strangers to this company.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, growing up though, I'm assuming Michael Schenker played a big part with his UFO and some of that helped forming you as a musician.
Oh, absolutely. It's pretty. It's an honor to be touring with people like that. So it's like, for sure. We grew up listening to UFO and Michael, and so he had a huge. To this day, he's had a huge impact on everybody in the band, not just me or the guitar players, but just the entire band. We're all huge UFO fans, and Michael's playing is just legendary, and he just kept getting better. He's playing so well right now. It's pretty mind blowing.
Yeah. He's a good guy too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we haven't really hung out yet. Like I said, we're only doing 5 shows with him on this run. We did 4 shows, just us and Wasp, and then we've done 2 with Michael Schenker group so far, and we have tonight, Dallas, and Tulsa, and then that's the end of their tour.
Oh, okay.
And then we just keep continuing on with Wasp for the next 4 weeks after that.
I'm curious, have you heard, well, obviously you have heard his singer he's got with him, Ronnie Romero.
Yeah.
That guy's got a great voice.
Great voice. He's got a great voice.
Yeah.
He's pretty versatile, so he can do a lot of the old stuff and the newer stuff, and so he's really versatile and really talented guy.
And then what about, I wanted to ask you, growing up, you grew up in LA area and stuff like that. What were some of the other influences you had growing up? I got to imagine like Y&T were Yesterday and Today, as they were once called, and Montrose maybe.
Sure. I'm a child of the 70s, so everything in the 70s is pretty much in my fabric.
Yeah.
Including like, R&B, like, Sly and Family Stone, Earth, Wind and Fire, that kind of stuff. But when it comes to hard rock, all those bands, all those bands in the 70s were a big influence on us. So Thin Lizzy, UFO, Kiss, Black Sabbath. The list goes on and on. Cheap Trick, Nugent, Aerosmith.
Yeah.
And when we particularly started getting into metal, we were influenced mostly by European bands. So Judas Priest, Scorpions.
Yeah.
And then a little bit later, when the new wave of British heavy metal started to happen, Motorhead was an influence on us. Early Def Leppard was an influence on us. Early Saxon. Maiden, early Maiden. So, that also kind of came into our picture, in addition to the Judas Priests and Scorpions, which was a few years before the New Wave of British heavy metal. But yeah, influence-wise.
So it's crazy for me to think, but we're coming up on 40 years of Armored Saint.
We're in 40 years.
Yeah.
We're celebrating our 40-year anniversary this year. So is Wasp, actually, because we both started around the same time. So yeah, 40 years, pretty crazy. Like,
I mean, how does it make you feel?
Pretty old.
Does it? I mean, yeah, you think in 40 years, wow, that's your whole adult life. You've been doing this.
It's nutty. I mean, I'm only, not only, but I'm 59. So, more than half of my life has been spent in this band. So playing this kind of music with this band and making this music and playing for people. And it's pretty phenomenal. I mean, I never, I don't take it for granted. Maybe there was a time when I was in my early 20s where I took it for granted and I thought, this is going to go on forever and this is great, and if I live past 30, I'll be lucky, that's the way I used to think, but now it's like, now I want to live a long time and I want to cherish every moment that I have, because you learn that life is actually really short. It's not, you don't have all the time in the world. It actually goes really quick.
Yeah.
And so the last 40 years, it's pretty mind blowing to think that 40 years have gone by. So we're all really grateful that we have this opportunity to play this kind of music that people want to hear from us still. We have a very loyal fan base, and we also have a record label that allows us to work in the capacity that we want to work in and make music, the kind of music we want to make at our own pace. And we're just super lucky, we're just super fortunate to be here, and we're really we're grateful.
So in the 40 years that you guys have been just pounding it, give me a couple of highlights. What's one of those ones where you go, fuck yeah, we did that?
Well, I mean,
Vodka?
the first thing is that we're still doing it.
Yeah.
We're still here doing it. So that's probably the biggest thing, the fact that we're able to still do this. I know that there's a lot of bands who never get here. So that's the biggest thing. And then, along the way, there's all kinds of things. I mean, I start naming things and I'm going to leave some out just because there's so many great memories. But I mean, we've been able, one of the biggest things I think for us is being able to travel the world. We never imagined growing up that we would actually be in places like Greece or Japan or, Australia, Italy, of course, all over Germany and the UK, so we've gone to a lot of places that we never imagined being able to be at. Played some big festivals, some of the big ones, Wacken in Germany and Hellfest in France. And, there's just so many really cool things we've done in that capacity. We've been able to be in, movies with,
that's true.
Hellraiser, that was a fluke and kind of a dream come true, and we were big Hellraiser fans anyway, and then we got to meet Pinhead, and there's just it's this crazy stuff that happens that you just don't ever imagine is going to happen, and then it does. So those are some highlights, I guess.
I guess it's got to be an honor too that you go to these countries where some of them don't even speak English, but they know the lyrics to your songs.
Yeah.
And they're singing along with you.
Yeah, I mean, for the first time we went to the Eastern Bloc countries back in 18, and we got to play in like Serbia, and like just crazy Yugoslavia, like places we thought we'll never be able to go there, So those are great. I mean, we're playing these really small clubs, but the fans there were just like losing their minds, First time ever seeing the band ever after 30 some years at that point. So yeah, pretty crazy stuff. We did South America 1 year too, and that was another just mind-blowing experience. So it's pretty cool.
So I just have to tell you a story. I told John the story when I interviewed him a couple years when the Punching in the Sky came out. Oh, there he's right there.
Sorry.
You want to stay here for the story I was going to tell him that I told you?
The Mike Patton one?
Yeah.
I remember you telling me the story.
No, I told him when I was a kid I grew up in Northern California. In your little town called Eureka, Fortuna.
I know
and we had a little record store there, and I would go there religiously I'd ride the bus up, we'd go get shirts, go get all that shit. And this one day, this one kid comes up to me, he was working there, and he says, "Man, you should try these guys out, that kick ass." And it was March of the Saints. And I'm like, okay, yeah, and I'll check it out. And I checked it out, and I listened to it, and that was like my first introduction to you guys. So that guy became like my staple for who I went to. He introduced me to, Metal Church and all those guys and stuff. And then one day I came in, and I said, "Hey, where's Mike at?" And he's like, "Man, he quit. He's in a band now." And I'm like, "A band?" He's like, "Yeah, he's the singer for Faith No More." And I'm like, "What the fuck, man? I bought records from Mike Patton."
That's hilarious. I never knew it. And,
that's amazing.
He is one of the best singers.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
I wonder if we went back to him now and said, "Hey, do you remember Armored Saint?" I wonder if he would know. I'm sure he would.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention, or I wanted to ask you about is, I was good friends with Mike Howe, and he's passed away, and I remember talking to him quite a bit, and he always mentioned touring with you guys. He's always like, "Man, I remember riding around in a fucking van with those guys. We always," because he said you guys were always touring. Do you have any? I wondered if you had any good stories about it.
Well, my memories are more recent. We did a tour with them in Europe, and we shared a bus.
Yeah, that's right.
And we don't always share buses with other bands, but once in a while we run into a situation where it's more cost effective for both bands, and it helps to know the people. And we'd known Mike and we'd known Kurt, so that was a no-brainer pretty much. But that was a really great tour just because everybody got along so great, and both bands it was a great bill for fans, so it was an easy time. It was great. Everybody got along great, and my memories of Mike are just, he was always always a guy that had a smile on his face, no matter what. He was always, he'd be walking through the day, and maybe you got up on the wrong side of the bed or something, and then he would just look at you and he'd smile, and it would all go away.
Yep.
So he was always kind of a bright spot in that. And we had a lot of nights where we just hung out, and he wasn't a real big drinker really, but he would hang out, and I would have a few beers, and and we would just chat about whatever, life, or just just music, and traveling or whatever, kids, because we both had kids and we had families and stuff. And I was really unaware of his mental state, to be honest with you. I didn't really know that he was at that place in his life, and it's really sad because I think I knew him well enough that had I known, it's all this hindsight's 2020. You would have reached out maybe, but I honestly didn't know he was that far down. Yeah. And granted, I hadn't seen him in a few years, but and it wasn't like him and I spoke very often off the road, but it was just so heartbreaking when I heard the news. So yeah, it was terrible. But he was a great guy, and I think the best thing about his whole thing is that he touched so many people in a positive way, and he left a great body of work behind. Yeah. And that's going to be here forever. So that's his gift to everyone. And those are things that we cannot take for granted. True. Yeah.
So the new album, I guess we can't really call it punching the sky.
It's new.
You know, I mean,
The last 2 years have been erased from our memories. So yeah, it's new.
It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it has. But are you guys working on new stuff?
No, we usually the way we work is very much like we have to close the chapter on one thing before we move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
We've never been a band that's really like written on the road or written in between album cycles. It's really been like we put a record out, we go and we do tour dates for it, and that's our focus. And then when we kind of finally say, okay, no more tour dates for this cycle, even then we don't say like, hey, let's write a new record. We just say, okay, let's decompress for a while. And it's usually quite a while, like 6 months to a year. And then we'll sort of revamp the conversation and say, so should we start working on it right here? But that, to be honest with you, during the pandemic, there was a lot of downtime and a lot of question marks, and we didn't know what was going on. So, I did do a little bit of writing just because of the time.
Yeah.
So I shared a few things with John, and we did some real loose writing, but I wouldn't even say necessarily that it was like we're writing for Armored Saint. John and I just have a good working relationship in this way where we enjoy writing together, and so we don't always have a predetermined spot for it. So we did do a little bit of writing, but I wouldn't say that we've started writing next Armored Saint record yet. I wouldn't go that official with it.
So that being said, the tour that you're on right now, what can fans expect? I mean, what song-wise, are you mixing it up? Are you?
I mean, the thing with us is that we actually don't have a huge catalog, but we've been around long enough that we have a decent sized catalog, and it's kind of hard to pick, like the songs that are going to please everybody, because at the end of the day, you can't please everybody.
No.
Everyone's going to have their own set list, right? But since we're doing 40-year anniversary, we're trying to sort of lean it towards the classics, what people want to hear. The other reason why we're doing that is because the last time we toured, we did Symbol of Salvation tour, and it wasn't even a very extensive tour. It was just kind of regional. We did pretty much the East Coast and the West Coast, and that was about it. So we haven't played a lot of these places we're playing on this WASP tour, playing a lot of cities where we haven't been in a long time. So for some people, they've never even seen us before. So there's some fans coming out that's like, this is my first time ever seeing you guys. And I'm like, wow.
That's me. I mean,
Case in point.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people who've been following the band for many years, like yourself, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And
84.
But have never seen the band for various reasons. So for those reasons, we also wanted to lean it towards the classics, because even though I'm sick of playing Can You Deliver and March of the Saint, how could we not play it for people like you? You want to at least hear some of the classics. So we have the new record, Punching the Sky, which we're super proud of. So we are including a few songs from that record because we want to. We're proud of it. And then the rest of it is just kind of, it's a lot of the classics. We're not going too crazy with deep cuts because, again, people, want to hear the more popular songs, and, so that's what people can expect.
Because if you were taking requests, I would say one of my favorites is Creepy Feelings. I love that song.
It's a pretty deep cut.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's one of those songs with the guitars that go back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
I love that song.
Cool.
So
thank you.
Yeah.
Revelation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's really hard, and we don't have a whole lot of time.
True.
We're playing 50 minutes, which is not, an hour would be better for us to show maybe a broader breadth of our catalog. 50 is kind of tight.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do our best with 50 minutes to showcase a little bit of everything. We usually try to play at least one song from every album we ever released. We're not necessarily doing that on this particular tour because of time constraints.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, the last thing I wanted to ask you about is you're in Merciful Fate. Are you officially?
I'm being told that. Yes.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they asked me to play on the next record.
Nice.
And to be a band member, and I said I would, and they've allowed me to keep my other obligations.
Mm-hmm.
They're important to me. Once I make an obligation to do something, they're respecting it, which is very nice of them. They're not asking me to quit everything I'm doing and just concentrate on the one thing. It's a pain in the ass sometimes when you have band members like me who are in like 5 different bands, because it kind of fucks up schedules sometimes, as it's doing right now. But luckily for Mercy, they got a great bass player, Becky Baldwin, to step in, and she's doing a kick-ass job, and the band sounds great, and the video's amazing. So the show goes on, and it's a killer show. So, so I'm going to try to... Our paths are actually real close to each other on this tour, so we're not actually going to be in the same city sometime around Pittsburgh, I think. Yeah. So I'm actually going to try to go watch the show as a fan, because I haven't seen the show from the front yet. Yeah. So I want to, except for videos, so I want to go check that out.
So, that's got to be, that's going to be pretty surreal to you, as we didn't mention it, but I'm sure that growing up
It's pretty surreal, yeah. And I've told this story before, because when the Saint was first coming up in 82, and even early 83, at that point, the whole scene was brand new. Like, people have to remember that we did not have internet, we did not have social media. Like, the only way you got information was basically like Sounds Magazine, Kerrang Magazine, Circus,
Hipperator. Yeah.
Even those were a little bit later, or the local music stores and stuff. So I acquired some pen pals early on in late 82 and early 83 that were overseas, and I would send tapes. We had at that point, Armored Saint made our first demo tape, so I had the 5 songs on the cassette, and I would start sending our tapes out to different people that were literally in the classified section, like, hey, I'm a fan of, whatever, first Iron Maiden record, first Saxon record, first Motorhead Sax, what's going on in Los Angeles, and be like, well, here's what's going on in LA. This is my band, Armored Saint.
Nice.
Whatever, whatever else I could find. And so one of the first tapes I got back from one of my pen pals, I believe it was from Belgium, was the first EP, the Merciful Fate EP.
Okay.
And so I played the shit out of that cassette because I thought it was amazing. It was right up my alley. It was like kind of, semi-progressive, like early, I don't know, Uriah Heep-ish kind of, bluesy, riffy, dark, and I loved it. I thought it was great. So I played the shit out of that EP, So that's my memory and my introduction to Mercy. So, like, fast forward, like, how many years later, and Armored Saint did a tour with King Diamond in the late 80s during his, I think it might have been Abigail tour, I can't remember, but, so we were acquaintances. Wasn't best buds with him, but I knew him enough, and we were label mates for many years, and I knew King enough. And when I was on tour with Fate's Warning in 18, we played Dallas, and King came to see us play, King and Brian Slagle from Metal Blade Records. And came to see us play, and at that time, they had planned this it was a summer festival tour in Europe, and they were getting ready to do it, but Timmy was going through chemotherapy, and they weren't sure if he was going to be physically be able to do the tour. So he said, you know, he came backstage and we chatted and we talked about music or whatever. And he pulled me aside and he told me the situation. And I was like, whoa. He asked me if I would be willing to be ready in the event that Timmy wasn't physically able to do it. Sorry about that. And I said, I'd be honored. Yeah. I mean, and of course, be honored. But I'd never thought that it would happen. I figured that, well, he's going to go through chemo and it'll be fine. And then what happened was that year got postponed.
Yeah.
And then after that postponed, and then in the fall, unfortunately, I think it was around this time last year or the year before is when Timmy passed away. Maybe it's 2 years ago at this point. And I was just like, oh my God. Like I was like shocked because for one thing, I didn't know he was that ill. And the other thing was like, I kind of wasn't taking it that serious. I think, but then I was like, oh shit. And I was, first of all, just devastated that I knew Timmy. He was a really sweet guy and a great player and everything. So I was just such a bummer that he passed away, and a terrible thing for the fans and just the band and family. He left behind his daughter, and it was just terrible, you know. But then the band came back and said, okay, well, you know, you're still in, right? And I'm like, oh, fuck. Yeah. So I had to start doing my homework and got pushed back another year. So I finally got to do it this past summer.
Yeah.
So yeah, super surreal. I'm on stage in Europe, you know, these huge festivals, and I'm looking to my left, and there's King Diamond.
Yeah.
There's Hank Sherman, and we're playing Corpse Without a Soul, and I'm like flashing back to the first EP, and I'm just like, what the fuck?
Playing push and play.
Yeah, cassette getting caught in the machine. And, yeah, so pretty surreal that's cool. A weird giant circle in my life that made a full circle, and super honored, and I was just honored to be there.
Yeah.
It was just really cool. So they were, you know, to a certain extent, they were influential in my early beginnings of Armored Saint, because this was a band that was doing what we were starting to do, but they were a year ahead of us. So they had, by the time our first record came out, they had already put out, I guess Melissa was the first record.
Oh, yeah.
Was it after the EP?
I think it was.
So, yeah. But that was already out by the time March of the Saint came out. So, you know, definitely like an influence because of like, oh, we're in the same boat, you know. As much as, you know, the first Def Leppard record or the first Saxon record, you know, stuff like that. So yeah, it's
that's cool.
Pretty surreal, and you know, I loved every minute of it.
I'll bet you did. I'll bet.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, I appreciate your time, and it's been good talking to you, and looking forward to the show tonight, and enjoy the rest of the tour.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Thanks for having me.